Good morning, everyone. My name is Christine Dykeman. I am from the Monmouth County Workforce Development Office. Today, I am presenting to you StealthEnomics. And I appreciate you all coming out to view this presentation. They're going to talk about wonderful how to start a business, what is most important, what is not, how to work a business while you are working, if that is something that you want to do. There's all kinds of stuff. So definitely watch this slideshow, listen up, take notes if you want. Screenshot information will be located in the chat box. If you have a question, please put it in the chat box and I will be happy to relay that information to them. Okay. To introduce Damon Ray Bond, sorry, Damon Ray Bond. Then it like messed that up.
It rhymes. It rhymes. It's okay. It rhymes when you get it down, right?
That's right. It does rhyme, right? He's the CEO. He is awesome. He is so laid back. He is so nice, and you are going to love him. He has over 20 years of experience in technology, infrastructure, deployment, and integration. Why is that important? Because he started his own business, and you need to know how to start your own business, what to do, what's most important. Maybe you want to just drop everything and do it. Maybe you want to do it a little bit at a time, put that toe in the water, kind of see what it is. He's going to take all those post-its that are in your head that are important and put them in order and help you decide how to move forward. And that is a really awesome thing. He's working with Christopher Bell III. Now, he is the COO of this company, StealthEnomics. All right. So you are going to learn from Chris as well as Damon on all the important things. He is co-founder of this company. Okay. And he is also bringing a lot of years of experience to the table. You should really pay attention. How did I meet them? How else do I meet all of the guest speakers here? Networking. Always say networking is number one. Networking is going to get you to where you need to go. Networking helps to develop relationships and bonds. And that's how I met these guys. How do you network? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. So thank you very much for coming, and take it away, boys.
Okay. My name is Chris Bell, and I'm humbled to have the opportunity to meet with you and the crew, Christine. It's pretty common for us to actually have conversations around launching a business. I'm unemployed, I transition from my job, where do I go, what do I do, that kind of thing. And so what we're going to cover today is, who we are, what is StealthEnomics, why do we even matter, who cares? And we're going to get a little personal. We're going to share our own unemployment story. We are actually entrepreneurs who are serving up and coming entrepreneurs who've basically structured a business to be the thing that we wanted to be when we were actually coming up. So every mistake that you could have possibly made, we probably made. Okay. And our genius is really anchored in the fact that we didn't quit. That's it. All right. And then we're going to talk a little bit about introspection, how you need to be positioned to be able to make the best decision. And sometimes you think you can't afford to make the right decision. And we'll talk about that very, very briefly, and how we actually tame the overwhelm with our processes and our systems here at StealthEnomics to help you make those decisions, go down the right path. And we'll talk about your job and your business. There's this mindset that, you have to have this entrepreneurial grind mindset, it's this big hustle thing. And the truth is, most of the people we know who are doing that are very, very unhappy. A few have made it really, really well. We believe there's a way to do it better, and we have actually proved that out and systematized that. So, strap in. We're going to move pretty quickly. Take some notes. If you don't want to take the notes, it's okay. We will be sending you this slide deck, but nobody's going to be able to capture the meat and potatoes that's going to be served up to you this morning. Okay. So Damon, let's get rolling. All right. So StealthEnomics is the only company we know on this side of the Atlantic or otherwise that's basically a single source provider for everything you need to launch, grow, and build your business. And we'll go even further back to plan your business. That is to say, I've got this great idea. What do I do with this? Where do I go with this? Why would this even matter, to me? And when you have one entity, one vendor that's able to do that for you and with you in a collaborative, systematic way, it just ends the drama, the multi-vendor runarounds, the frustration and chaos that you usually experience when you're working with multiple vendors to try to get something done. And something as important and strategic as launching your business. And the fact is, I think one of our mottos is that we don't do projects, we do dreams. Okay. And because we understand that it's so important to people, we take our time and we have a team of accountability that makes that happen. So when we talk about what we do, I think I would be remiss if I didn't take a minute to talk about our CEO and a co-founder, Damon Raybon. Christine briefly introduced Damon, but I want to tell you, I see Damon, and I've worked with Damon since 2013. We met at a college university lecture room and whiteboarded our ideas with two other guys. And we came away and we said, oh my gosh, we can do this. And everybody in the room, the four guys, were all entrepreneurs who had failed, raised up, and we're moving ahead. We said, this is crazy. We can do better than this. Damon is a systems expert. He has a way to look at things and tie them in to end to make them matter for the purpose, for the cause. But more importantly, he brings to the table an immeasurable amount of empathy. He gets it. He understands. He listens to understand as opposed to proving a point. And as a multi-brand entrepreneur, he has multiple businesses. The fact is, most of us in our company actually have multiple businesses. We figured out once we can systematize this, why do one? Why not have more? Damon is a tireless leader. We have calls at 7 a.m. in the morning sometimes, and at 10:30 at night sometimes. And my wife laughs. Nobody can be mad because she sees how happy and enthusiastic I am, because we're actually doing something and making things matter. But it wouldn't happen if Damon wasn't in place. So I'd like to introduce everybody to Damon Raybon, who's going to share a little bit more about StealthEnomics. Who are we? Damon?
Thank you, Chris. You got me blushing over here with those such nice words. It's always good to
just send the check later.
Yeah, it's always good to hear somebody talk glowingly of you. So as Chris said, in terms of what we do, I think also as important is to know, who are we? Who is StealthEnomics? And as you can see from the way that Chris eloquently, describes our capabilities, the core of that is that we do not do it alone. We, like he said, have failed enough, we stumbled enough, we've been able to pick ourselves up, and we've been able to learn from that. And what we say is that those are our learning experiences. Those were not failures, they were just opportunities to learn. And one of the things that we've learned is that we position ourselves as business strategists and wealth builders and advisors and experts. And we do this with a team because we know that with a team, you can get anything done. It's hard to do things on your own, not to say that you can't, but it is definitely very difficult. And so what we've done in our StealthEnomics ecosystem is we've developed a team and a experience and ecosystem of collaboration for the benefit of the entrepreneurs that we work with, so that when they do plug into what we have and what we're doing at StealthEnomics, we present an opportunity for growth. We present not just, like Chris said, the project, but the dream. And not only the dream, but how do you fulfill that dream? You can dream and have the passion and the goals, but then you have to start to materialize what that's going to look like. And with our team and what we've built and what we can do, we make that possible. And one other reason, as I move forward here, is we can understand where you're coming from. And my story in terms of this, I've experienced failure as a business owner, and I've also, been terminated from a job, like, many of us may have or may not if you're lucky. But for me, graduated from college, and when you graduate from college, the next thing you need to do is to get a job, because now the real life hits. Now for me, I had bills while in college, but then now it's like, oh man, I don't get no refund checks. I don't have the cafeteria to go to eat anymore. I have to buy groceries. And so, I was able to get connected with Office Depot and work my way up into management over in their technology department. And things, from my perspective, was going well. And then my family stopped in and, just in an impromptu visit. And I ended up saying, okay, I'm going to take a moment to spend some time with them, right? I wanted to, they came up, I haven't seen them in a while. And so I talked to the management team there and say, hey, would it be okay if I took a few days and spent some time with family? And sure enough, they said, yes, that would be okay. You can do it. No problem. Go right ahead. And so that's what I did. And when I returned, from my, vacation, right, getting a little time to myself, because I do work hard, I ended up being terminated. And so with that, now I'm thinking about, okay, so what's next for me? What should I do? What do I want to be looking into? So a colleague of mine basically said I should take a look at contracting. My background was in technology, degree in computer science. And I was in the technology department of Office Depot, so I still had the skill sets. And so I went and basically went into a IT staffing agency, did my assessments, and basically got placed with a few different technology companies. And while I was being placed and going through that environment, I was able to basically get introduced to contracting, which was very lucrative for me. I mean, basically, I wasn't tied to anyone. I made pretty good money and then moved around to the various projects. And through that process, I eventually ended up winning a contract with Hewlett Packard. And so I turned the experience of being terminated into opportunity to find a path and a way to where I can leverage my core skill sets in order to continue doing what I need to do to generate income. But what they also did for me is giving me perspective, because when I was at HP, I was lucky to sit behind a gentleman who was over there contracting. So they basically contracted across the board with various contracts, various different things in technology, from project management to, HP printer implementation servers or what have you. And basically he would review candidates and have conversations around them around, okay, what can you do? Here's what this contract would pay. And I was like, well, how can I get on the other side of this thing? Because I hear him every day working deals, making connections, and it sounded pretty lucrative to me. So I decided to get up one day, didn't know the guy, but I decided to get up and say, hey, I hear you talking about, these different contracts that HP has. How do I engage into that? And, how do I get introduced to getting on the other side of this thing, not being the contractee, but the contractor? And so he began to say, hey, yeah, this is what you do. Here's, how we do it. Here's what we look for. And then I decided to start getting into the entrepreneurship and start to build more relationships, go to different entrepreneurial events. And so that's what led me, because before StealthEnomics, I had a technology company, as I mentioned, because with HP, because of the different type of opportunities, I was like, hey, let me just form a technology company and see what I can get engaged with. And so through that, I was able to then build relationships that led me to one of our other co-founders, Vonnie Wright, who then led me to Chris. And like Chris said, we met at the campus, we had conversations, we had great synergy, and we decided to then birth StealthEnomics. So my journey and my truth in that process, where I was basically terminated, I had to figure it out. And through that process, I also lost my car because the engine blew up. And so I basically was beating the streets with my feet, walking and knocking on doors and, trying to figure it out. And I remember most vividly, and it's interesting now that it comes to mind, but right when I got contracted to what led me to getting these other opportunities, I had to ride the bus and it was cold. My feet was like frozen. I thought my toes was gonna fall off. And then I had to walk, it felt like miles down this long road in cold, moist, wet weather to basically do this assessment to not necessarily get a job because it was still up in the air, right? It was for me to get an opportunity. And it ended up working out. And so, that part of it is just where you have to be determined as well. You have to move steadfast and move forward. So that's one of the reasons that StealthEnomics, how we can relate to what it is and how you feel when you're going through transition, trying to figure it out and looking at what that next step would be. So with that, that's my story. Chris, his story is going to blow you away because I tell you, man, this story and the passion that he has and what he has withstood in his entrepreneur journey is, I think it's just amazing. And so I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to let Chris give you guys an insight on just his story. And this is just only a glimmer, just a little speck of dust, but it's going to be very impactful for Chris. I'm gonna go ahead and let you speak to your story because I feel a lot of people on this webinar today will get a lot out of it.
Right. So in 2008, I was fortunate enough to be a warrior for my life. I had a cancer diagnosis, surgery, and I went out on leave, FMLA approved leave, came back and was terminated 2 weeks after I got back. It's not illegal, may feel immoral, doesn't feel good personally, but hey, it happened. It's never personal until it happens to you. And then the thing that changed my life, I went to a class similar to the one where you guys have gathered, a number of people who are unemployed. It was mandatory in my county for professionals who were laid off to go to this class to get reoriented. And in our reorientation, the facilitator said, hey, look, some of the jobs that you people have will not be coming back. So you need to think about your plan B and move it to your plan A status. And I came truthfully into that session with an L on my forehead, feeling like a loser. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a 6-figure earner. I've been doing global business. I'm blah, 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 blah. My ego used to be here. And now I feel this big all over the place all the time. I just felt broken inside. And I turned to my left and there was a lady from Life Magazine who's a photojournalist. She had a portfolio of pictures like this big. She'd been all over the world taking pictures. And she said, well, I'm out. I won't be doing that anymore. To the far left were a table of MDs, physicians, who had a joint practice. There were 5 of them. And the question is, why would 5 doctors, MDs, guys and gals who spent their whole life preparing to do, life-changing work, be in a room with people like me? And what I found out is that in their practice, 5 of them said, hey, look, we want out. We're going to go join this HMO, Kaiser Permanente. And so their practice collapsed. And guess what? It meant as employees in that practice, they were eligible for unemployment. So I was in there with physicians, went to lunch, and heard one of them said, I've got over $300,000 in medical school debt. I don't know what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And in the back, there was 3 tables connected for people from Provident Bank. Provident Bank had just been purchased and merged by another bank, and all the executives, everybody's a VP, I guess, in a bank, were back there, and this was part of their process for transition. The life-changing point was that I realized that it wasn't a Chris Bell issue. It wasn't that I was wrong. It wasn't that I was flawed. It wasn't that I was deficient. It wasn't that I made a bad decision. It wasn't anything of the sort. And so while I was going through that and recovering from surgery, I wrote my first business plan while going through surgery. And I had 2 kids in college at the same time. So the National Bank of Daddy wasn't closed. and so I went to work in an office building 2 about 2 miles from where I live. And I could have gone there to clean those offices, do toilets and the like. I could have gotten there at 6 o'clock, but I didn't want to because I knew people that worked in those offices. And I didn't want to see them see me cleaning urinals and toilets and taking out their trash. My boss said, hey, you can get there at, at 6. I went in 11:30. Nobody saw me, 11:30 at night. And then I became a bartender. And being business minded, I had my own bartending business. Okay. But the net is that I realized that in my business plan, I had made people tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars at some point. And here I was broke and struggling and a janitor. My question is, how do I take this stuff that I've been able to accumulate and make that matter to just pay my bills to start? That's the only thing I wanted. Can I pay my bills? Can I get a good night's sleep without waking up in the fetal position with my thumb in my mouth, depressed, right? So with that in mind, I landed my first check as a contractor consultant from a person who rejected me from a job. I told him, I said, you can't afford me, but what I will do is I'll do these things. And if you pay me X amount of dollars, when I do this, we can have a long-term drive. And so that's what I did. Damon, next slide.
Before you move on, I am so impressed with both of your stories because they speak exactly to what our clients are coming to the table with. And they can totally identify with your stories, and they've been there, done that. Whether it's the health scare or whether unemployed out of the blue, and we have all this other baggage, and it takes a toll on our emotional mentality of we're not good enough. And you're telling us that we are good enough and we can contribute to society. And that's a really great thing, but we don't know how. We don't know what is the next step to take with all of our experience. So I am definitely looking forward to the rest of your presentation.
Thank you, Christine. I'll hit the pause button. By the way, does anybody have any questions, comments, or the like?
We don't have anything in our chat box thus far, but don't forget, you can use the chat box to put your questions in. It doesn't have to be just my commentary. Right.
So look, I'm not going to read the bullets on the slide. They're pretty self-evident, but I will extrapolate those that really meant the most to me. Believe it or not, it may surprise you. The big deal, quite frankly, for me was being able to take my issues off of myself, because I had found myself in a vortex of complaining and thinking that I didn't have this, I didn't have that, I didn't meet my expectations. And to do that, to deflect that, what I did is I went into maximum security correctional facilities to teach a purpose-driven life to incarcerated men for 5 years as a volunteer. And that whole process, when you go into a prison, a jail, those guys read, they study, they have time. You can't go in and fake it. And what they helped me understand is that incarceration is not a matter of location. It can be disposition, demeanor, and mindset.
I love that. That is so great. Yes.
Okay. So what they really did, they have no idea, is they actually helped to free me and gave me permission to be successful as I pivoted and repositioned myself and made myself over to matter to me. Your reputation is what the world says you are. Your character is who you know you are. I've been obsessed with my reputation, and I had no control over what people would think about me. But I did have control over my character and my self-identification. And so I focused on that, and I realized I was bigger and better than maybe the titles I had before or the roles I had before. And so I went off and I did some things that have been transformational in a huge, huge way. In September, I was appointed to the board of directors of Generosity Global, where we're digging water wells and providing services in Cameroon and Kenya. But we're also providing huge mobile shower services to a homeless community in Baltimore, Maryland. So my path and my purpose is actually anchored in helping to improve the human condition. And the scholarships that we've given here at StealthEnomics, we've given away a $25,000 entrepreneur scholarship, are about improving our capacity for those who want to make a real difference in this world. Next slide, Damon. So I touched this very briefly. And what I talked about was basically a mindset. And that mindset requires you to take an introspective posture. That is, look on the inside and ask yourself, do I know the truth of myself? Do I really understand me? And what we're going to find are sometimes the people that are closest in our life will tell us the truth, but they won't tell us the truth in love. They'll tell us the truth to beat us up. They'll tell us the truth to manipulate us. They'll tell us the truth to do a whole lot of things. But it may be the truth, but the question is, what's the motive in what they're saying? And so when you are able to look at yourself in the mirror, as opposed to always by habit looking out the window to see your justification. Well, I don't have this because, and I'm not here because, and this is happening because, and you're not looking at you. You're not looking at you. So I've been married twice before, and I sat back and I asked myself, my God, Chris, you know, 2 failed marriages, what happened? What was in common? You. Okay, you were common. Even though stuff was going on, you were the person that was in common. So you have to look at yourself and you have to understand, do I have the goodies and the cojones and the mindset and the drive to climb one more mountain? And I say climb one more mountain, there's a tendency to look way out and see this whole set of obstacles. And we're just basically saying, can we take the next step? Mm-hmm. Can we do that? And do I have the habits to hold myself accountable? If you don't, that's okay, but that's the magic here. At StealthEnomics, we know it, we get it, we're the same way. We're a team. We knew that by myself, standalone, semi-autonomously, I could not do this. I needed a team around me, people who were as driven as me, who weren't like me. I mean, God, you can imagine being in a room with 2 people like me at the same time. Who wants that? Right? So what we did is we basically came together as a team and we said, all right, look, we failed before, but we're, you know, that was then. There's a systemic problem out here. We identified that. We basically said and understood that there were so many disparate pieces and so many confusing pieces of conflicting information and so many so-called coaches and experts telling us this, what we need to be and what we need to do and click this and give me thought. It was crazy. It was insane. And we said, no. We want to be able to have conversations, real world conversations with real world people, so we can help them translate their dreams to something practical and give them a lamp at their feet, not necessarily, you know, what I would say to be high beams on a highway so they get you so far away. Sometimes you just get the next step. So we help create a launch plan. And based on that, we have a flow and a process and a system that anchors in on our experiences and failure, that understands from an empathetic standpoint where people might actually be and how to have the tenor of a conversation that will meet people where they are as opposed to being presumptive, and promotes their posture and their desire to pivot and move on. So from here, I want to talk a little bit about, let Damon sort of carry, you know, a little bit about how that actually unfolds, why that actually matters, and some of the steps going forward. Damon?
So as most of you may know already, right, when you start your business, you want to start thinking about your business name. What do you want to call yourself? And one of the things that we want you to consider when doing something such as that is consider your name as a part of your brand. You know, you don't want to say, you know, Pookie's Bike Shop or something like that, right? Because then, you know, how is that going to be branded when you start to really look to expand your business? So you want to consider your name as a part of your brand. And then the other aspect of that, you want to make sure that it's available, right? You want to make sure that your business name is available so that if you do business, you can do business under the name that you do want to use. That is your branded name. Now, one component of that is useful to know is that although you may not necessarily have that name ownership, you can create a trade name, meaning that a name that you can do business under. Sometimes you still want to have your uniqueness in your business. So that way the efforts and the work that you do doesn't get attributed to someone else's company, but you can create surnames, so to speak, of how you want to operate your business under. And then the final thing that you should consider when doing your business, and this ties back into the government contracting side of things, is how do you want to classify your business? You can either have you have typically your NAICS and your SIC code, and those basically are codes that designate what type of business do you have. And if you go into government contracting, they will ask you, what is that code? And some states, or actually all states, they also have their own codes as well. But those are things you want to consider when starting to get your name. Think about also how you're going to be classified. Is there anything else you want to add, Chris, to that?
Yeah, it's a soft touch. It's really subtle, but it matters. Your personal brand. Who do you say you are? And is the world in agreement, and is there congruence with how you've defined yourself? Right? Because while you structured your business, and this is where we're going to, stay anchored and push for, there will be times where you don't have much but your credibility. And if all you've got is your credibility becomes your currency. That's what you spend to move things ahead. If you don't have cash, if you don't have credit, at least you have credibility, right? And so be mindful of absolutely how you structure your business, but be also mindful of how you've identified yourself. That's it.
Let me ask you guys, you had mentioned, I'm sorry, if you go back to the last slide, the trade name and the business name. Is the trade name an umbrella, and then the business name is what you're known as for branding and marketing?
It'll be in the reverse. Your business name is your umbrella, right? Your business name is the entity that you primarily operate under, right?
Okay.
And that's where you can have your EIN attached to your business number, or your business social security number, so to speak. And then once you get that established, you can create a DBA, a doing business as, which is like a trade name, underneath that parent company.
Okay, so for example, would be like the Dunkin' Donuts franchise went and it changed names, so it's doing business as Dunkin' now, as opposed to what it used to be.
Right.
Even
okay,
though
so the business name would be that umbrella, and the trade name is the Dunkin'. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, yes, that's a good example. Yep.
The question in the chat box: what was the name of the codes? You had mentioned the EIN number, which is the FEIN number for New Jersey, which is the business number / if you have an LLC, that kind of thing. It might be your social
That's
security
basically
number.
how your business will be identified. It's basically like the social security number for your business.
Yes. Does that help? I hope Lori had asked that. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay.
Actually, if I can, my question was on that, just for more clarification, is there like a name for those codes? I mean, are they called, you need a, blank business code?
Are you talking about
for them?
Are you talking about the NAICS codes or just the business code?
The business codes. I know you said you needed it for federal contracting, and then you talked about that there were some that were for state contracting.
Yeah, basically the state, you can check usually your state vendor list that you can register to. The NAICS codes are basically federal, and some local counties adopt the same codes. And then mostly from a local level, you will also, from a state level rather, you'll probably have your SIC codes, your SIC codes as well. And if you Google those, actually, it'll pull up the governmental site that gives you the full list of those codes, and you can actually download the spreadsheet so you can search your business category and see which code is associated with it.
Right, and that's profoundly important because when you understand how you're postured against a SIC code or NAIC code, you are able then to understand, to a certain extent, who is your competition, what niche and lane you're flowing in, and you're able to understand then what should I co-opt from my competition and from those people that have done well? What should I pay attention to? How should I position myself? Because in business, sometimes it's not fight, it's flight. Sometimes it's not attack, it's positioning, right? And if you understand up front how you are positioned, you get to do that well. Damon talked about getting your, obtaining your EIN. Great step. You can do that in about 1.5 minutes on your own, irs.gov. No drama.
Yes, you can. We have talked about that before, and Chris is absolutely right.
Right.
So, it is very easy.
Right. Really, really easy to do, but that's an iterative first step so that when you begin to formulate your company or your corporation, you're then able to move from a say an LLC or DBA sole proprietorship to your S Corp or C Corp, designation as you evolve. But you need to be able to drop the corporate curtain between you and your personal life. There is a fiduciary responsibility that you have, for your company and for your family and your legacy as well, personally.
Yes, absolutely.
So when we talk about the company formation, we talk about, choosing the right state to form your business. Delaware, no taxes, or, Florida, pretty decent. Arizona, pretty decent. But there's some downside to that. Remember when businesses were taking hits and folks were able to go for PPP funding and different locales and the like? Look, if you live in Jersey, but you're, registered company in another state who has different regulations, you might get a skip on some taxes or some benefits there, but you miss altogether. So look at the pros and cons before you consider initializing your business in another state. We basically say you need to legally incorporate your business. We can help you do that. Our process and our system and our infrastructure allows you to do that. You can do that on your own. Now, I say this with caution. It's like swimming in a lake. You can do that on your own. But if you get a cramp in your hamstring or stuff goes raggedy, you're out there on your own. And there's no matter of counsel that we can give you to fix that. You're going to swallow some water in a best case, and worst case, you may drown, right? So we recommend that you get some guidance in obtaining the EIN and your business operating agreement, which comes under the umbrella of a formalized LLC, S Corp, and the like. And you need to establish, and here, this is the big deal, real big deal, a business address and virtual mailbox address. Why? Because this is going to impact your capacity to actually secure funding, or what we call going after OPM, other people's money. All right.
Chris, let me ask you, is this the same for-profit or not-for-profit, or are there different rules and guidelines of order you should follow if you were trying to set up a nonprofit organization?
Yeah, when you want to set up a nonprofit, it's more nuanced because nonprofits can't go out and just raise money as a corporation. Nonprofits are dependent upon grants and donations and that kind of thing, right?
Okay, so will we talk about that today, or is that kind of a separate?
We can touch bases with it because I'm on the board of directors of a global nonprofit. Right. So I know the dance, I know the governance and all that's required to make.
I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No. It's okay. It's actually your time. We're here for you. So,
and actually, real quick, if you don't mind, Chris, one thing to that, I think on the front end is similar because Chris and I, we had an experience like he just mentioned, right? You can't raise money as a for-profit. And the reason we say that because we tried to do it, not because we was trying to get over or anything like that. Like he mentioned, right, we are trying to help the condition in the entrepreneur ecosystem. So we had our Millionaire and You conference back in 2018. And so we was looking to fundraise and bring on sponsorships for that conference. And we found when we engaged that you had to have a nonprofit 501(c)(3) in order to really, and it was really more so like we talked about on our, before we started the meeting, Christine, what's in it for me, they need to be able to write that stuff off.
Yep.
So since then, we've of course founded the Millionaire and Youth Foundation as a nonprofit, which you can go through a similar process that Chris mentioned in terms of our process to make sure that happens. But I just wanted to touch on that, but you can go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so there are two dynamics that we want to consider when we consider, the nonprofit and establishing a company address, virtual mailbox address. One is the legal requirement, and the other is the preference, right? So as a matter of preference, one of the discerning pieces, in fact, I did a paper for a global software company that talked about the nonprofits. There are 1.5 million nonprofit organizations just in the US. And so when you look at donor entities and their business drivers, that is to be able to be more philanthropic and targeted in their giving, they're paying attention to those who are wannabes, oh, this is a great idea, to those who basically structure themselves like a corporation and a business, and have postured themselves professionally with an address, a business address that allows them to see that you're thinking differently. So if I have a nonprofit organization and I've got it anchored in my apartment number J, whatever that is, that tells me the size, scope, scale of where the founder is today. And the truth is, people aren't thinking that fast, that long, and they're not spending any time on your value proposition to the community you're trying to serve as a nonprofit. As an executive at a nonprofit, you need to be able to present an executive presence at every gate, at every step, at every glance. You need to be able to do that. And a virtual address will allow you to do that. Not mandatory, but allow you to do that. Even in respect to a business. It's not a legal requirement, but if you go out to get funding, you will not be able to secure funding with your home address. They're going to go do the Google search and going to see, oh, Chris has got a nice crib, but it's in the subdivision, and no, we're not going to give him $1.5 million. Okay, so be mindful of the difference between the legal requirement and the preference for the entities that you're working with. One is a donation grant community as a nonprofit, and the other is a funding community, whether it be equity funding, capital funding, venture capitalists, angels, or banks. They're going to look at your address to ascertain who you are. Thanks.
Can the address be like a PO box?
Typically not.
No. You can use that for mail purposes, but not for your business or nonprofit organizational address.
Thank
and
you.
The reason is when you do a Google search on a PO box or even a UPS box, it has a certain designation to it that tells banks or other entities that are searching you that that's not actually a physical address. That's a box. And that's not something you want to do to build that company or organizational profile for your address.
Which speaks to one other thing, Damon, for all of us to understand this, that all expertise has a shelf life. Okay. If I bought a carton of milk 3 weeks ago, open it up and pour it and don't expect drama, then I'm a fool. Okay. Business has changed, requirements have changed, the preferences for lenders have changed. They're always evolving. You're talking about a dynamic ecosystem that always changes, which is the reason why we say you cannot do this alone. If you wanted to get a business loan even 8 years ago, your home address was okay. It would be okay. If you were a nonprofit and you were doing some fundraising and the like, a small nonprofit, it's okay. But if you're a nonprofit that's looking to get 6-figure grants and awards and the like, not going to happen. Trust me, as a guy who sits on the board of a global NGO.
That sounds like job search changes every 6 months too.
True.
Change is all around us. It's always happening. So
yeah, it is. So don't do this alone. Don't do this alone. Okay, next slide, Damon, you're on.
So as Chris said, and this is also why it's key to get that virtual physical address, because when you do get that type of address, it is searchable through Google. It does shows up as a physical location. It does give you a presence of being larger than what you may be at that point in time. So we call that your business profile, or if you're a nonprofit, that'll be your organizational credit profile. That's one component of that equation to start building that. And the importance of that, in most cases, and most of you may have experienced this, when you go out for a loan, even if it's a business loan, they are going to ask you for a PG, a personal guarantee. They want to have some level of collateral against the money that they're going to lend you. But if you build your business profile from the start of you starting your business, at a certain point in that growth, you won't need a personal guarantee. You can get a loan on the strength of your business credit profile, but you have to build it first, and you have to know how to build it. And so that's what we help do. Along with that, we have a couple of different type of options. And these options that we're sharing today are options that you can get whether you're basically just started a month out. You know, in most cases, if you go to a bank, you need to have at least 2 years of business history, which they call seasoning. You have to have 2 years of business seasoning. With these particular profile or options, you don't necessarily have to have it. We have a business funding team. We'll basically take your intake of a profile, your business profile, and we then have an assessment done to really pair you with the best funding option for your business. And the one thing I do want to note for these things, it is not a grant. So if you get any business loan, you need to make sure you have that business loan tied to revenue generating activities. So activities that are going to help you pay back the loan. It is a good way to bootstrap and get you out of the door, but you don't want to waste a lot of time on activities that's not going to generate any revenue, because then, in fact, when you do that, now you just ends up with a loan and, you know, no revenue. And then next thing you know, 6 months down the road, your business is shut down because you couldn't pay back the loan. So we don't operate in putting people in position for that to happen. That's why we do the assessment, and we want to make sure you do have a plan, and we tie those things to income generating activities so that you can make sure you pay back those loans. Did you have anything to add, Chris?
Yeah, the big deal around the business funding, and to really amplify and illuminate this piece, is that you got to think about this in the beginning, from the very beginning. When you set up your business and you choose to do business with people, you have to ask yourself and ask them, will they be reporting your spend to the credit bureaus?
Good point, Chris. I forgot about that.
You're trying to establish business credit. If they're not, move on and find somebody who does and will. And there's plenty of it. And we actually have a resource that, you know, has given us, you know, foresight into who should be used for whatever particular reasons in business. The other part of this,
while you're working your business, you want to be strategic about what you're doing so you get the results that you want, not just spinning your wheels.
Right.
That's right, because you're going to be spending money, so you might as well spend money in, like you said, the with them, right? What's in it for me? You need to go ahead and spend your money with vendors that's going to help you build your business credit profile. And that's basically called your trade lines, is what Chris is talking about. When you use or when you purchase from a company that's going to basically report to the business credit bureaus, which is the same as the consumer credit bureaus. It's just that it reports as a paydex score for credit versus, you know, the, I forget the term for the personal credit, but essentially it's different. So Chris is absolutely 100%, 110% right. You want to use vendors who are going to report.
Right. And the last part on this is that Damon, you know, hit the ball out of the park. You don't want to get a business loan without having a customer or customer. And that means that you usually have to have a plan. Now, most people recoil at the thought of having a business plan. And you don't have to have a business plan that's so comprehensive and detailed and granular that you're ready to go out and get venture capital. We're not saying that. but you do need that plan to hold yourself accountable. Liveplan.com, great, universal, cheap, easy to use. You need to have one to hold yourself accountable, to understand, for you to understand in your mental and financial GPS, where am I now against where I am going? So you need that for you, forget anybody else. And then if you have a concept and you're looking to test that concept, or you're looking to create a prototype, or you're trying to figure out, does this really work? You need to be able to take that plan and present it to grandma, to dad, to your soror, to your frat brothers, to people to say, or your pastor, your priest, whomever, your rabbi, the people that you worked with, done business with, your coworkers, your previous bosses, and say, hey, look, this is what I was thinking about. This is where I want to go. Is there any compelling reason why you wouldn't do business with me if I were able to structure this thing? Or alternatively, here's where I want to go. This is what I want to do. I'm looking for people who want to be a part of my shiro or hero story. What do you like best about what you see? Now, I won't charge anybody for that, but that is a consulting, that is a consulting tip. You never ask anybody what they think or what they feel, because the human brain always goes to the negative. We always ask people, what do they like best? And then it anchors to the positive, and you get positive affirmations and you get positive direction and momentum that takes you where you want to go. But that plan allows you to basically get enough money and get enough credibility resource to launch your business, get a customer. Your first best customer may be your last employer. So the old adage, don't burn any bridges, is huge. We can move on.
Is everything that you said, Chris, part of the question in the chat? Is that the same as the net 30 accounts when building business credit?
Yeah, that wasn't what Chris said, but that's what you want to do when you do get vendors. Usually when you do, like for instance, if you use Uline, because you're gonna need to get office supplies. Uline allows you, to set up a net 30 term. And when they do that net 30 term, that they will basically, and you have to spend at least a minimum of $50, but then that'll get reported to the business credit bureaus, the Dun & Bradstreet, the Equifax, the TransUnion. It reports to all those different credit monitoring agencies, so that your credit for your business shows that you have a trade line, that you're doing business using credit for your business.
Right.
Where can I learn how to make a business plan?
Sure. There's a lot of reading that's available, that will make your eyes gloss over and knock you unconscious, if you're not careful. There is one application online that I recommend that is very, very inexpensive on a monthly subscription basis. It's called Live Plan. Okay. Now, what I like about Live Plan, allows you to dive in with some granularity to, look at how you want to manage cash flow, burn rate, forecasts, and all the rest of that. But it also has spaces in there to say, this is what I want to be when I grow up. Okay, this is what it's supposed to look like. And then you're able to map that to a marketing plan. And a marketing plan is sort of the anchor to the overall business plan. And when you have those two married together, it allows you then to think about your next, what we call first best steps. How do I really want to go and tackle this? What should this really look like? And what's really cool about this is that it gives you the text layout format so that you can read it, and fall asleep, at night if you want with it. Or it gives you pretty pictures and bar charts and graphs, pie charts and the like, that allow you to see where your niche market is anchored. What's your ideal price point? How many units do you have to sell to get X amount of dollars over Y amount of time? So all of that kind of thing gets your juices flowing. I highly recommend Live Plan. And there's no way that you're going to be successful in business, no matter the scale or size, unless you know where you are and know where you're going. And part of life plan or part of any business plan is anchored in what is my exit strategy, which is something you should also have for your job.
Yep.
Okay. It's not just business.
Absolutely.
Like, am I just going to quit today, bump this job, I'm out? No, that isn't what you do. And you don't do that in business.
Right.
Okay. So it needs to have some forethought, and I'm sure you're there. But the business plan piece, I learned this from a bioinformatician, a molecular biologist. And when I went to work for this company, I couldn't spell DNA. Most things are made to be overly complex intentionally. Most stuff is set up for you to hit the brakes, hit the pause button. So you're forced to ask somebody else, what is this? Why is this? Does this matter to me? I'm here to tell you, as the guy who was balled up in bed with his thumb in his mouth, depressed in the fetal position, trying to figure it out, that it's hype, it's a lie. You can get this, you will read this, take it in small bites. Don't do it alone. That's why you have the StealthEnomics way in the StealthEnomics process. So I hope that helps.
And one thing I would add to that, Chris, is one thing I wanted to add to what Chris was saying is that also when you do the plan, just know that it is organic. You don't have to be so rigid to where this is what you worked on, you put it together, and now basically the market is dictating something different. You have to listen to the market, because if not, you're going to miss your mark. The market will tell you if your concept is viable or not. It'll let you know if you have to make a brand pivot, a relaunch or whatever that may be. You have to listen to what the market is telling you. And what we also do, we have our plan, but then annually we put together what our strategic plan will be. So you peel it back so you can focus in on certain aspects of your business for the right now, and not necessarily the global big document like Chris mentioned, right? You can look at where do you want to go, and then you can dial back to with a strategic plan in terms of what things do I need to do from a strategic and tactical standpoint to get me to the ultimate goal.
I love that advice. I think that is really good advice. And you should be taking that in your life, in your business, in your job search, no matter where you're at. What is the market demanding and what does it want, so that you can be that thing that aligns with you. Of course, you don't want to, be something and fake that you're not, but what is, the common characteristics that are going to make you successful. So we do have a few questions. Is it okay if I ask you?
Please.
Go right ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I know we discussed location, address. It should be a mailbox from a UPS or a mailroom box, which uses a unit identifier. You had said no in a previous conversation, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. Advertising. Are we going to be getting to that? I don't want to jump the gun.
We will.
All right. So we got to talk about advertising. So just be patient. All right. So did you say live plan?
Live plan.
Services.
Did you drop that into the chat, Chris, for them?
It's already there. Somebody already did.
Okay.
For guidance to better forecast the business plan. Is that what you said? Live? Service?
Live. Live.
LIVE?
Live plan.
Live plan?
Yep.
Live plan. One word, just checked it out. Live plan. Got it.
Yes.
My LLC is already formed. Can I change my business address?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Do you recommend any sites for mailboxes?
I'll send your
Anywhere.
email. Do you remember, Chris? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
I look, my dad is 89 years old, going to be 90 soon, and he's rolling in his business. Okay, just formed another business, right?
Good for him. Yay.
And he said,
Rest
look,
of the family, huh?
right. And so, well, I mean, not really, believe me.
Maybe down, bottom up.
Yeah. But anywhere mail is great.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
I did some homework on those guys. They should be paying me. We're not affiliate, but they do a great job and a great price point. And they have basically an official virtual address that's close to your geographic location based on your zip.
Right. Now, what I will say about anytime mailbox that you want to check before you pick, because they have multiple locations, but what you want to check before you select the location is make sure that, and sometimes it may be a little challenging to check, but you want to make sure that it's not, if you're basically putting in Google My Business, you want to make sure that it's not blacklisted. Because whatever address you choose, you want to be able to go through the Google My Business process through Google so that it will then associate that address when somebody searches an address in the Google. And
Tell
the
me what
reason,
that name is again.
anytime mailbox,
And-
anytimemailbox.com.
That's one word.
That is one word.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But basically, you want to make sure that the address is searchable through Google My Business, so that when they send you they usually send you a code through the mail to verify the location. That way, when they send that post note, you can verify it, and then it'll basically show up verified when you enter that address into your Google My Business profile.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
One more question. Can you put that virtual mailbox name in the chat? I just did. How would we know if there are multiple businesses associated with that address that may reflect negatively on the business? You just answered that, correct? Maybe it's
Well, they don't actually. Anytime business won't issue the same address. They basically like it's like if you go to a suite, right? If you go to a corporate office in the downtown area where you go, you can have basically one address, but you have multiple suites at that address. So anytime mailbox basically will give you, and it's actually a physical location. It's not like it's just a virtual, it's actually a physical location that they have established that they issue suite numbers to the virtual mailbox holders. So your virtual mailbox suite will be dedicated to you only. So it wouldn't be used for anyone else. But someone else could be at that address, the main physical address, but they won't have the same suite number.
Gotcha.
Correct. Now, in short order, when we talk about this virtual addresses, what you'll do is you'll go typically through a virtual notary process, and you'll give them permission to scan your mail. You'll see the address of the envelope coming in, and then you'll check it, once a day to say, okay, open this. And they'll open it and scan it again for you to view. You can read your mail wherever you are. Yep. And then once you've done that, you can choose to discard it and they'll shred it, or you can have it physically forwarded to you, mailed to you for your own action and execution if you choose. I just did a plan for my dad that was like $9.95 a month. Yep. He's stunned. I'm like, Dad, why are you going to the post office? What's up, man?
Yeah. It is nice. It is nice. Yeah.
Right. So it changed his life. He was ooh ah. It can be that way for you, where you literally can work from your laptop, capture your mail, never miss anything substantive, very inexpensively. Right.
And they will actually deposit checks for you as well.
Absolutely.
So you don't even have to go to the bank.
So that is part of the change, right? I mean, you can start off in your house, you can start off as LLC and then like make it a brick and mortar building, whatever. And that's just part of the change.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And actually, I think that's a good segue into the operational side of it as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No
Continue.
problem.
I'm sorry.
No, this is great. This is why we're here, right?
Yeah.
No, this is why we're
great
here.
Questions. Yeah. Great engagement.
So we were talking about what, business operations now, Damon?
Yes.
I think I won't touch office space. You already know, kind of know what that is. A while ago, it was anchored as a necessity to have an office. And most office spaces I know today, you can look straight through and hardly anybody's there. Okay, great buildings. People are working from home, or they're doing, the mix in between. You may or may not need office space, but I will tell you what you will need is a community of people to support you, that support other entrepreneurs, which is why the workspaces like the WeWorks and the Regises
Yep.
and that kind of thing are important. It's important to plug into, as Christine really did a great job talking about early on, networking, and networking. We would have not met if we hadn't met through another event. You would not be hearing us if she hadn't actually purposefully and intentionally, said, hey, look, how can I deliver benefit to my community? And shows she does that on a regular basis.
Thank you.
You need to, we ask our customers to get a virtual phone system. Because if you're going to be in business, the voicemail that you have as an individual somehow does not, for friends, family, and the like, is not going to resonate well with somebody who may be willing to spend 6 figures or 5 figures with you and your concept. There's a different kind of thing. And it doesn't mean you're being disingenuous or not authentic. It's just that you're one person in different roles. You're a mom, you're a dad, you're a sister, you're a brother, you're a lot of things, but you're still the same person. You're a coach, you're still the same person. So the tone that you use and the approach that you use to engage people matters. Here's something we want to understand when we're new in business. People talk about closing business. I don't believe in it. In fact, the course I wrote basically speaks to a principle that I've termed called competitive immunity. Everybody's closing business at the end. Why not have a strong opening to establish competitive immunity? So when somebody hears your voice, when somebody calls your number, when somebody visits your LinkedIn profile, when somebody engages you, whether you're here or not here, what do they experience? So every time they touch you is an event, it's an experience. You want to leave that fragrance of a great experience in the room of their minds. And so get a virtual phone system. We use Ring Central. We love it because I've got a voicemail box that, sounds very professional, where I can drop my voice and use my baritone, to sound really great and cute, right?
What was the name of that?
Ring, RING Central, CENTRAL.
Thank
Go
you.
to our you can go to our website and actually secure the service as well.
Thank you.
But you've got to have the tools that position you to have that externally facing presence that helps you redefine yourself. Because truly, your biggest challenge, even as we look at business operations, is going to be, as a new business owner, imposter syndrome.
Yep.
You're not going to feel like you are who you say you are for a while because you don't have the results, you haven't had the tenure, you don't have the time. And so what you need to do is position yourself empirically with the evidence, with the tools, with the stuff in advance that affirms the truth of your transformation, your journey, and/or where you are actually going, where you're visioning. That needs to be in place. You need to remind yourself for more than a minute. And the tools you use and the posture you assume allow you to do that. There's a line here that says subscribe to the Business Performance Center. We love this. I think it's what, $9.99, $10 a month?
No, well, actually, it's $30 a month for the Business Performance Center. But you do, with the $30, you do get around 5 business app products that allow you to build your business. And speaking of Ring Central, we do actually have access to that in the Business Performance Center so that we can do an assessment. We actually loved Ring Central so much, we decided to deepen our relationship with them. And so now we have a direct connection to their sales team so that we can broker deals for our clients to get them the best system for what their environment would dictate. And like Chris said, we do have, if you just need the phone, we do have the ability to get the phone system under our virtual voice over IP plan. And the benefit of that plan is that not only do we give you support, because I don't know if any of you on the line have actually gone through the process of configuring a virtual or phone system. It can be challenging if you're not experienced in that space, and setting up virtual, auto attendant, your voicemail, and all those different type of things. Well, we help you do that with that plan and get you off the ground and configured and supported so that you can focus on things that matter, which is growing your business. And the Business Performance Center allows you as an entrepreneur to basically look at your business in one solution on one pane of glass and get access to all the tools you would need to run your business.
Is that us in one state, or is it nationwide or global?
It is nationwide.
It is nationwide. Yeah,
Nationwide?
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I think we sort of covered that piece, the support for other entrepreneurs. If you're going to go into business, you have to be unselfish, but you don't have to share everything. Okay. Right. You know, you could be running your mouth to a competitor who takes your best idea. And truth is, there's nothing more. I haven't had that happen, but I have had people steal my content, you know, where literally right, like word for word, you're reading through stuff and you're like, wow, that guy's spot on. And you look, you're like, I wrote that.
I've heard that before. I've heard that happen a lot, actually.
Yeah. So that's another conversation about trademark and copyright. But let's move on to the next slide.
So as someone mentioned, right, what is about marketing and advertising? So with that, we always say as a part of your brand, right, when we first started this thing, when we said your business name, you also want to have a business logo design. You want to have the name and then the branded design that's going to represent your business, right? You know, that's why you have the golden arches. That's why you have the Starbucks, right? You'll know those brands not only by their name, but what their logo is. So you want to get a logo, which is important because you'll use your logo on any digital marketing you do. And then the other thing we had, which we did put a question mark about it, right? Get a business card. That has changed. You don't necessarily give out business cards anymore because you can basically do a QR code and scan your business information. You don't necessarily need the actual physical card in today's climate. You know, it may have a place, but nowadays you have way more options than what you used to.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag.
Go ahead, Chris.
That's actually a mixed bag, and you need to know your audience. You need to know the people that you're interacting with. So if you're dealing with you know, boomers and the like, you know, we're used to, you know, saying here's who I am. This is my business, that kind of thing. But it may mean nothing to somebody else, you know. So know where you're planning to leverage it, if at all. I think it's always good to have them, and if you need them, use them, rather than find yourself in a space and a place being the only person at the table who isn't basically networking with their stack of cards for somebody to go home and scan. Just food for thought.
Yep. And then the other part is get a business email address when you do get a business. So for instance, if you can avoid it, don't necessarily use a Gmail address that's not branded. If you go into a business, you want to get a business domain name, you want to get a business website, and you want to basically use that domain name to create your business email address. And with that business email address, just as you would do at a job, right, you create a signature block for your company that you're working for, right? So why wouldn't you do the same for yourself? We see entrepreneurs and people that's starting up, they'll send us emails, but you know, it comes from a personal email address and then they don't have a signature block. So that goes into showing, appearance. And sometimes is actually everything, you know, first impressions and things of that sort. So if you're emailing someone, even a government entity, and you're looking for a government contract, and they see that you're emailing them from a personal email address, and you don't even have a business signature block, they may look at you as like, well, you know, this might be too big of a opportunity for them. They're not ready to really take that on just yet because you really don't show a business structure. And so by creating
people
this,
are being judged.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Filtered.
Yeah, I
you
can't
know.
even imagine.
Filtered and dismissed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
so
and dismissed.
yeah, filtered and dismissed. Not overtly, but subconsciously, you just don't get moved to the you don't get moved to the front for consideration. So
you get moved to the back of the pile. So you want to have, even though you're starting up and you may be small, you want to make sure that your outward presence of your business looks like a Fortune 500 company.
Right.
Yes.
Because in today's climate, with today's technology, it's 100% possible to do that, and it's 100% affordable for you to do that for your business.
So here's what I did through our own business performance center. I had done this before, but I renewed this through our own business performance center. My name is Christopher Bell III. You see that on the Zoom identification. When you want to reach me, you reach me at Chris@ChrisBell3RD. Okay. Now, I use Chris@ChrisBell3RD as my email address. ChrisBell3RD is my domain name. And I use it so that when I want to present myself as a personal professional, let me underscore that, as a personal professional. That is to say, maybe I'm not associated, maybe I don't have my brand locked and loaded. I don't have, I really don't know what I should call myself in business yet. Maybe I want to interact with different companies, organizations to test, my chops at consulting or contracting. Maybe I'm one of the most important people in my life. I don't even know yet, but they're actually CC'd on an email that has gone out. I don't want to have something that's jacked up from the neck up that somebody sees with a yahoo.com or gmail.com associated with my identification and personhood. Maybe I don't have my website up yet and tendered, but what I do have is I have a LinkedIn profile, and I will include my URL for my LinkedIn profile on all my correspondence and in everything that I have, so that people can see that I have third-party authentication with my recommendations and understand who I am at a glance. So you can do this cheaply and you can do this quickly as you stage your company. The point is, we don't have to do this all at one time. And the order of instruction in the technology space that we're in, we call it the syntax, matters. You can do the right thing at the wrong time. And what we're saying is, again, 3 words. Don't do this alone. Okay. Don't do
And
this.
everything that Chris is saying, as far as this whole logo thing goes and marketing yourself, that goes for job search as well as owning your own business. So if this doesn't apply to you, please tell your friends and your family and anybody else, because it is that important. You don't want anybody to judge.
It is. And then in closing out, we do have in our Business Performance Center an entire marketing platform. And we take you through a funnel-based approach where you want to basically get awareness first. Then you want to basically make sure once you get awareness, you want to do awareness, findability, and then you want to make sure you can convert. So how we have designed, and you'll see this if you were to go into the Business Performance Center, right on the dashboard, it has a little funnel there, and that funnel really illustrates how we go about our marketing funnel for doing digital campaigns for our clients. So we want to make sure that you can be found first, findability. Then we make sure that we are, as far as your awareness, that people are aware about you. And then we make sure that you can convert. And we can do this from a small to large scale. We really have a whole entire digital team around it. We also have a social team to help you with social media posts and creatives. We also have our design team. So within this one platform, you have everything you need to position yourself to be successful, but it all ties back to our first point, which was your plan. Because without a plan, you can do all the marketing in the world and you'll just be throwing money out the window. Did you have anything to add, Chris?
No, you spot on, nailed it.
All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Before we ask questions, I want to really make sure we understand where we are on 2 postures. Okay. One is if I'm unemployed and I'm trying to think about like where I was, like, all right, how do I take the skill set? How do I take what I've done, for a living and make that something matter as a business? And then the other one is I'm working a job right now. I know this isn't it, but there's no way I could do everything at one time without the wheels falling off of my life. I've got kids, I've got, I've got work, I've got da, 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 right? So when we talk very briefly, talk about the first position, which is, hey, I'm unemployed right now, okay? Damon and I shared our unemployment stories, and I'm here to tell you that that is a temporary condition, situation, and circumstance. To not anchor in on that. That is what we term to be a lower truth. Yeah, it is, but it's changing, okay? The higher truth is that you are positioning to put yourself in a better position as a result of somebody else's decision. Now, you have to be able to fight against, and I say flow against your previous mindset, which was really great, which was anchored in what we term to be fidelity, truth and commitment to an employer versus truth and commitment to yourself. And now there's this distress and contention about what should I do? How should I process this, et cetera, et cetera. I submit that you can do both at the same time. You can dribble and shoot at the same time. And this is why StealthEnomics existed, because there was no way, with all of those things that we listed, all those bullets, all those options, that I could launch my first consulting business without my hair falling out. No, not literally, right? but the net is that it was horrific. The only reason I survived is I was just desperate. I drank my own sweat, not literally, but I felt like it, And so I would never do that again. I never would ask anybody to think like that again. Again, if you have a system and you have a process that allows you to do these three things, remember these three things for your life, for your business, for your work, your condition: crawl, walk, run. Everything is progressive. Crawl, walk, run. If you're crawling and you need to be able to learn how to crawl, don't trip out when you see somebody running, doing what they're doing. You're not an imposter. You're not a failure. There is a process. In fact, Damon, probably, I don't know if you posted a blog that,
Yeah, it should be.
Okay.
Yeah, it was already queued up. Yep.
Yeah, just posted a blog about my son, who's a world-class global choreographer. We talk about mastery. Okay. Mastery takes a minute, and mastery you had in your position, on your job, or in the role, in the profession that you're in, and you acquired as a result of going to school and networking. That set of mastery has its place. The question is, how do you translate that? Sometimes it's not the content, but the process. How did you get there? Commit yourself to your next, which could be very well your best. Truthfully, I had no idea that, I would be with, 4 co-founders who become extraordinary friends who are growing a 7-figure business, right? That wasn't it. I wanted to pay my bills. That was it. Don't know. That was it. The other side is, if you're working the job today, StealthEnomics, we asked ourselves, why does stealth matter? Because you can't talk to anybody. Our process allows you to do what you do behind the scenes, quietly, systematically, with predictable outcomes. And see, that's what systems do for you. You don't throw metal and rubber and plastic on a car line and Ford and expect to get a Porsche at the back end. Doesn't happen, right? What you put in and how you structure what you do up front matters to what you produce. And what we've said is that we're producing predictability, which is magic in business. That's what all businesses are looking to have. So now that I've shared the crawl, walk, run, it's okay where you are. Let's have some questions.
Well, not so much questions. I love that you're saying you don't do this alone. You have a group of people, and whether they're in the same business or a different business, to be able to share that information, to share your contacts and your processes or whatever will benefit you both. Paying it forward is definitely the way to go. So thank you for your information. Lots of kudos here. Question, how to get virtual business and how do you change from home address to virtual if you're already incorporated?
That's actually is a pretty simple process. All you have to do is go to the Secretary of State of the company or the state that you're registered. Excuse me. And actually, for most of you who are in business or have an LLC or anything that's registered currently, you're probably coming up on your annual report anyway. And so when you do your annual report for your business, you can go ahead and update the virtual address if you've already registered for your virtual address. Just
so it's
update
just like moving or like
Mhm.
your UPS. So you just go to the post office, change your
Yep,
address
you
on the
basically
form?
just except for the post office, Secretary of State. Yep, and just update your address.
Right.
How
then
do
you
you
also
get
want to do
virtual
it.
business?
You also want to do that though, real quick. You also want to do that not only with the state but the federal, because when you initially register your business, they'll have your house address, your home address that you
Yes.
register with. So you'll want to also update it with the federal government as well, so that they'll update what's attached to your EIN.
Would not have thought of that. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's yeah, two places, not one. That's a
Mhm.
really good
Yep.
point. Thank you. How do you get virtual business? I know the answer, but what do you have to say?
For virtual business, the question, virtual is a big word. It means different things to different people, right? So virtual for some people means that I'm just not standing in front of you, shaking hands, having a conversation for us to have a transaction that takes place. For some people, we could basically say this is an e-commerce, an e-commerce business. So how do you, run or do business virtually e-commerce? That is a class and a seminar all by itself. But the net is that you need to have the externally facing presentation of your value proposition amplified and repeated over and over and over. And the reason is what you already know. Most people have the attention span of a goldfish. Okay, it's about 5 seconds, right? We're so distracted. The world is competing for, you believe it's your money, it's not, it's competing for your attention.
Yep, your
Right.
time.
So your biggest enemy, and I wrote a course, one of 24 performance and resiliency courses I authored. This one is called SOS, which is about distractions, right? You cannot allow distractions, which are built into your everyday life, to cripple you. And it's not meant, they're not meant to kill you off. They're meant to degrade your process, your momentum, and your focus, which allows people like Damon and I, who are like myopically focused, laser intense, to really kick buns, in our space, because we're like, everybody's blah, blah, hair on fire, doing their thing. And we're just like this. There's a way to get there. And take a look at the course. If you're interested, drop us a note. We'll help you with that. But the e-commerce world, the e-commerce business is quite frankly where we are. Our transactions, Damon, when was the last time we did business with somebody standing face to face?
Yeah, I mean, since COVID, we haven't done it. I'm actually looking forward to getting back out. I actually have some trips I'm planning to visit clients and do some engaging, because like I'm thirsty for it. I like to get out and interact, but we have not had in-person transactions for probably 2 years.
2 years,
all of our,
at least.
And that actually just goes to what we was talking about before in terms of operational. You got to build the infrastructure. Like if you don't have an infrastructure in place, you wouldn't be able to do that and sustain yourself. So we did have our infrastructure already in place, our Ring Central, our websites, our e-commerce, all of what we needed to conduct business virtually, we had in place. So that's why we was able to, over the last 2 years, really be able to conduct virtual business.
Right. And it wasn't as painful as so many other people who have a brick and mortar business, or what I term to be a brick and mortar mindset. There are people who are paralyzed if they can't literally eyeball to eyeball, kneecap to kneecap with someone. Right. So, that can be changed. We can train our way out of that.
Jamila says, I like what you are saying. I'm a process person. So having a process and different steps is definitely helpful to some of us that think along those lines. I agree with you,
Mhm.
3000% with that comment. Great information. Thank you. Can this be done starting with low funds?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Is that because we're crawling to walk
Mhm.
to run?
The crawl has to do with your mindset stage, not
Mhm.
necessarily your money phase.
Okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. So when we say crawl, I wrote a course, another course you can dive in, and it basically is building while broke.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
I know what that looks like. I know what that feels like. I know to be so broke where you don't have a budget. Okay. It's not a budget. It's like, I hope, my auto transaction takes place before this transaction takes place before whatever. That was my budget. That was my mindset. My motivation was desperation. When you've got little to no money, what's most important is to protect your mindset and to understand that everything that you're going through and dealing with right now is actually fuel, juice, ammunition for you to be able to kick the doors off the hinges. Because I'll tell you, when I walk in a room, although I might have an Ivy League, notation in my education, whatever, nobody really cares. They care about the fact that, guess what? I was laid off from a job. I survived cancer, wrote my business plan while I came out of when coming out of surgery, and went on to build a 6-figure, business, and now creating a 7-figure business. That's what people want to know. Where you work. I was a janitor. I was a bartender. That makes you unique. The stuff that you're afraid of, that you're ashamed of today, the stuff that, is crushing your spirit today, truthfully will be an inspiration to somebody that you can share with, because where you are now has nothing to do with where you're going. And I said this briefly, the most important people in your life, because you are who you are on this call, you don't even know yet.
I think that is so interesting, as well as inspirational, because a lot of the baggage, who we're bringing to the table, we think is a negative and not a positive, even though it shapes the person that we are today, that's standing, sitting, whatever, on this call. And that is really important to address, as well as turn it into that positive. Like, don't look at all the other stuff, look at where I've been, so I can take you here and there with whatever business they have. So I love that. I know that we're kind of going past our time together. I do have 2 more questions. So
that's fine.
If I don't get a chance to address your question in particular, the chat box will be sent to them. So they'll have a reach out again, and you'll be able to address it at that time. So we're not forgetting about you, totally. Do you have any input on deciding on whether to register as a sole proprietor or an LLC if you're starting out alone?
I would recommend, me personally, I wouldn't start as a sole proprietorship. If you are going to do anything, you can start out with a single owner LLC, and then once you get your feet wet in that, I would recommend transitioning the single owner LLC to an S corp, just for giving yourself that veil of protection, like Chris mentioned earlier on, between your personal and your business liabilities. I would definitely recommend LLC at the minimum.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah, and this is really about legacy insurance. All it takes is one incident, one person in a very litigious society, where somebody doesn't like what you've done or whatever, and says, Chris, I'm angry, I'm going to sue you. I mean, even if it's whacked out or crazy, I've got to pay legal fees.
Even if they fall in your driveway, whatever it happens to be, if you're running out of your home, and they can sue your whole house, and that takes everything away, and you're putting your whole family on the line, and you might take that into consideration. Accidents happen.
The not doing an LLC was something that you might have been able to do in a smaller community where people knew you, and everything was cool, maybe 20, 25 years ago. That's where you started. But today, that's like driving a car in DC with no insurance.
Yes.
Are you crazy?
Perfect. All right, next question. I recently heard during the crawl stage, there should be time put into building an online presence with social media, as opposed to all the other stuff that we did talk about. So if we're baby stepping it, what are your thoughts on that, since we did address that towards the end?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. You need to ask two questions. Who do I say I am? Who do they think I am? The delta between the two, the gap, the space between the two, is what you have to reconcile within yourself as you establish a new identity and you pivot to be what nobody's ever seen before. To do that, you need to anchor first on who you are as a professional. What have you done? Who have you contributed to? Whose lives have you transformed? Where have you made a difference? You know, that kind of thing. And I find that to actually work really, really well to be able to have those questions answered on LinkedIn. LinkedIn provides a space and a place for people that you've done work for to say, this is who he or she is. Now, once you've established that this is my people have authenticated you. They said, you know, Sam is this, and Mariana is this, and Lola is this. Then you're able to redefine yourself externally and the perception, because you can lay out stuff. You can actually draft content, stage posts, be in groups that amplify where you're going, the direction you're going, and validate your state. That is where you want your business to be, where it is, and who you're playing with. It also helps you to recruit your teammates. Trust me, I didn't know Damon. I met Damon through my best friend, you know, in college, who is a co-founder. And one of the first things I did was go to LinkedIn. Who is this guy? Right? What has he done? What does he matter? And although, you know, Vonnie told me who you were, I needed to understand and have that credibility that existed. Once you have that social anchor, that social platform anchor there, you can broadcast out. If it's a B2B business, if it's a B2C business, I say B2B, I mean business to business. If it's B2C, it's a different kind of game altogether. Then you actually need that periphery of social platforms that would include TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Clubhouse, you know, those things, if you are going to be doing business with a consumer, because that's where they are.
You mean what's in it for me?
There you go. There you go.
With them.
Yeah.
That's where they are.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have to be where people are. I haven't had anybody, I did a 6-figure deal from a lead I captured off of Twitter in 2010. I'll never be able to do that again. It was an anomaly. Twitter's grown different. Everything is different, whatever. But I've captured 6-figure deals in business consistently on LinkedIn because my core competency is anchored in B2B global enterprise technology stuff. Although I am a personal an expert on the B2C and interaction with executives and advisors. The point is, you need to know where people are going to sweep their credit card and write your check.
Yep.
That's where you need to be. And you need to take the approach, crawl, walk, run. The other side,
and it could be also what your preference is. You also got to think about what your strong points are, where you can add value, because you don't have to focus on all of these platforms. You can, you know, strategically choose where you want to start out at, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and if the more platforms you have, the more content you will have to create. So you definitely want to be strategic about where you spend the efforts in that space and one of the other things I wanted to really elaborate on that Chris mentioned, right, is building your team. So in business, you have, I see two core ways to build the team. One is, equity share business partner. And some of you may not necessarily want to give up equity, which is the ownership in the company. The other aspect of it is you can do a profit sharing agreement aspect where you basically, meet people that may have a common interest, common goal, synergy. You have chemistry, competency, and character in the people that you're dealing with. And so you can then say, hey, you know what? I will offer you a percentage of profit based off of what we're doing as an initiative, and you can work it that way. So in that regard, you will retain 100% of your equity of the company, but you get a team that you can grow because you're sharing in the profits of the organization. So that's just some options there. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, the third leg is a virtual team.
Yeah,
And that virtual team is a team that you find on Fiverr, the people, the experts that you see on LinkedIn, and the people that are broadcasting and doing what I call I forget, it's some kind of sharing. They call it X sharing of their skill set. So you have a virtual CFO, a virtual COO, a virtual, because you're not those people, you don't even know how to spell CFO, right? How do you need one, but what do you do with that? You find those people, you hunt those people, and those people can be part of your virtual team. And your initial team should be, quite frankly, your attorney and your accountant. Okay, they're going to stop you from making what I term to be fatal errors. There's stuff that you're going to mess up, there's no question. But if you are in touch with your accountant and your attorney, they will not allow you to fall on the sword because something happened. Okay, you don't have to take the pill, right? It's not your responsibility. They're there to cover you. So the two essentials, are your accountant and your attorney, and you can build and create a virtual team. And we have had a virtual team for a minute. Our CFO, brilliant finance guy, finishing up his PhD, killing it in the consulting game. He was one of my coaching clients. Okay, his business was, he had a team of guys and they were fighting, and I was a referee, red and a white and black striped shirt, and I'm saying, time out, you in your corner, and then I stole him. Okay, so you'll find people who have titles, position, posture, competency all over the place, but you won't be able to know who they are unless you get in the space in the field. So there's a whole lot of ways to divide that up. Food for thought.
You have some great suggestions, both of you. I'm so excited. I want to run out and start running, not crawling. Okay. And I bet everybody in this call is the same thing. I want everything. I want to do it all. And they're so excited. So thank you for rejuvenating the belief that we are powerful. We have knowledge and we can share that with the world through networking, through having our own business, and still do job search at the same time if that's what we choose. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We have a lot of thank yous. This was excellent presentation. People are so happy with attending today. So thank you so much for doing this and sharing your information and expertise, because it's more beneficial than you absolutely know. I appreciate it.
That's the easy part. The last thing is that we're providing you with some access to some resources, okay, that you're going to want to understand. So when we talked about systems and predictability, go to our site. The URL is there. You guys will receive the slide deck from Christine. You'll be able to click on the URL and register to understand what the first best step system is, and you'll actually get a flow as to how you do, what you do, when you do it, so you don't have to guesstimate, because this is very high level today. I authored 24 learning modules. There were productivity and resiliency modules. Dive into the link there, everything from, launching your business while broke, being distracted, trying to figure out your DMO, your daily mode of operation. If you worked as an employee, working that way as an employee under somebody else's guidelines is one thing, but then making the pivot and shift to do that on your own while you're working a job and launching a business, or you just, you're unemployed and you want to structure, your daily mode of operations to ensure that you have enough time to do a legitimate job search and launch a business. How do you do that? How do you structure that? What does that look like? So those kinds of courses are there. You want to dive in, take a look at it, drop us a note if you're interested. We'll schedule, very brief discovery to understand what you want. The managed WordPress site is important. Look, we talked about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is important, but if you want to really put up something that gives people, your prospective buyers or investors, an opportunity to see where you're going, what you are, and transform their minds as to how they see you, get a website up that briefly, one page even, that briefly at least articulates your value proposition, but that website should allow you the flexibility to modify, edit very quickly, and add content that is meaty and meaningful over time. There are a couple of ebook downloads that you should have. I wrote 5 things you should know before you leave your job. Most people just like, I'm out or whatever. And I'm like, please pump the brakes. You had a bad day, doesn't make it a bad career. And there's things that you need to think about. And then there's our official blog. From every day, we have new insights, new information from people who are like us, that we love, who love us, that we share on a regular basis. Dive in, catch up, subscribe to, get feeds on that. And last but not least, we're a 24/7 shop. So it doesn't mean I pick up the phone or Damon picks up the phone 24/7.
You don't? Come on.
It means that we're open. You can do business with us, and we set expectations when to get back with you, and typically within hours. We understand that, dreams and momentum are important. We don't want you to lose that. We're very, 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 very responsive. I think that's what you'll find, and sensitive. So thank you for letting us share. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. I do appreciate it, like way, way more than you know. And so does our audience. So thank you again for coming. I will send you a link to the slides, and you will have everything at your fingertips. You want to watch a replay or share it with somebody. Always do it with support, right? I think we learned all that. Never do it by yourself. So if you have any other questions, they will be in touch with you, and you can feel free to ask them anything that we did not get to in the chat box, although I think we got to most. So
all right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
Y'all
so
have
much.
a good day.
Folks,
You have
take care.
a wonderful day, and we will definitely talk very soon.
All right. See you at the top. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.